Good morning, everyone, and welcome. We'll be starting the webinar shortly. As a reminder, all audience members are muted, but questions can be submitted during the webinar by clicking the Q&A button at the bottom of your screen. Now I'll turn it over to Kyle from the St. Paul Area Chamber of Commerce and Chad Kulas from the Midway Chamber of Commerce to start our program today.
Good morning and thank you. Welcome everyone. It's our pleasure to be here today. Chad, you and I haven't been in the same room for some time. It's great to see you too.
You too. We've been just in virtual meetings like this for a while. It's good to see you too, and let's get right into it. I'll do an introduction. All right. Since 2001, Betty McCollum has represented Minnesota's 4th District in the United States House of Representatives. The 4th District includes St. Paul, as well as all of Ramsey County and most of Washington County. Congresswoman McCollum currently serves on the House Appropriations Committee, where she is the chair of Interior Environment Subcommittee and the vice chair of the Defense Subcommittee. Prior to Congress, Congresswoman McCollum served in the Minnesota House of Representatives and was elected assistant leader 3 times and was on the North St. Paul City Council. In addition to elected office, Congresswoman McCollum's career has included teaching high school science, as well as 25 years in retail sales and management. She's a graduate of the College of St. Catherine and the mother of 2 adult children. Please welcome Congresswoman Betty McCollum.
Thanks, Chad. Thanks, Kyle, for helping to put this together. And we've got a very special guest that you're going to be hearing from later. I want to thank the St. Paul Chamber and the Midway Chamber for working together. And we're going to have a great conversation about the resources that are being out there directed to help small businesses during the time of COVID. And I really mean this. I really appreciate the partnership between the chambers. And I hope this can become part of a dialogue in the upcoming months where I can hear from you. You can share what you know is going on, and I can share the work back to Congress that needs to be done. But as I do, we have someone special with us, and I want to give Brian McDonald a special thanks. He was just last week named the Minnesota Director for the Small Business Association. Yay! And I have to say, our office really appreciates all the work that Brian and his team are doing. I wish you had more staff to help you. I don't know how your staff's doing what they're doing, but we really want you to know how much we appreciate you, and I'm trying to get you even more resources. So let's face it, people here in Minnesota and Americans all over, we're struggling. We're struggling through a crisis. It started out as a healthcare crisis and continues to be a healthcare crisis, but also is very much an economic crisis for families, for businesses, and for our nation. And numbers are important, and but these numbers come with them tremendous loss for families and communities in our nation. More than 86,000 people have passed away. 722 Minnesotans last night when I was watching, I won't say what news station, and they were giving that out. When each one of those people had someone that misses them desperately. And each one of those people also contributed to the vibrance of our economy, either in building it or in supporting it today. 36 million Americans have lost their jobs, and many of them are facing financial uncertainties. And I know because they're calling our office for help. So as every family is grappling with these changes and these challenges that are happening in their daily life, they're still grappling with staying healthy, paying bills, caring for aging parents, and in many cases, trying to keep kids focused on those last couple weeks of distance learning for school. So Congress has been hearing what the American people have been telling us that they feel that their government should be working to support them with. On March 4th, we passed the first major COVID response legislation establishing funding for loans for small businesses impacted by the crisis. It wasn't perfect, but the house was on fire and the fire truck came. On March 22nd, 2020, March 27th, the CARES Act was enacted into law providing emergency assistance for small businesses and eligible nonprofits. And it established the Paycheck Protection Program called PPP. And it created $10 billion in a grant program leveraging the SBA's Office of Disaster Assistance. As problems have emerged with the rollback, especially the Paycheck Protection Program, House Democrats implemented changes in the HEROES Act, which is why I was in Washington just a couple days ago to pass that. We put forward immediate fixes to strengthen the PPP, ensuring that small businesses in desperate need of funding were able to stay afloat. April 24th, 2020, we passed another response with additional changes in funding for these programs. Congress intended that these programs would provide immediate financial support to secure the survival of the small business community. So let me tell you what we did just last week, and I'll be brief because we want to hear from you and questions. But we heard from businesses loud and clear. I spoke with both the chambers presented here, other small businesses in Washington and Ramsey County, and people who just called to solicit me for kind of what was going on and tell me what they thought needed to happen. So here is what is in the HEROES Act currently that the House just voted on. And yes, it is $13 trillion to protect the lives and livelihoods of $3 trillion. Josh is here. I haven't seen you for a while, Josh. Hi. $3 trillion to protect the lives and livelihoods of the American people. It has $75 billion for testing, tracing, and treatment, because in order to make the economy healthy, we have to get the American public healthy. It provides strong support for our heroes with $1 trillion of state, territorial, and tribal governments. We know our states have been spending money out of pocket, and so have our local governments on COVID, but we also know they're not taking in the revenues to provide the services that your small businesses need. So we're working to what we can do for that. And we also salute EMS, teachers, and other vital workers, fire, police, transportation. I was just at Kowalski's today, and the people who are making sure that there's food and nutrition for our children. They're all concerned about losing their jobs, safety on their jobs, what will happen to their jobs in the future. And the HEROES Act makes sure with $200 billion to ensure that these essential workers receive hazard pay. And there's things in there also to protect their health care should they become victims of COVID. Put money back into the pockets of workers. We know that you need people to feel confident, whether it's buying groceries, going to one of the hardware stores to do whether it's a do-it-yourself project, or whether it's something that needs to be fixed right now, or just getting out, getting that garden going to supplement the family, that we need to have money in the pockets of workers. It also has health security, workplace security, and housing security, and food security in it. But I'm going to just take a second now and focus on small business. It supports small businesses by strengthening the payroll protection program to ensure that it reaches underserved communities. And that's a lot of our communities here in this part of the East Metro. It provides nonprofits, which are the backbone for our communities too, of all sizes and types, to be able to respond with their concerns. The way it strengthens the paycheck protection is it sets aside funds for small CDFIs and other minority development institutions. It expands eligibility to all nonprofits. It carves out 25% to be used specifically for small businesses with 10 or fewer employees, because those employer groups were competing with everybody. And when you're that business, you're not living paycheck to paycheck, you're living heartbeat to heartbeat. 25% carve out for nonprofits that stipulates at least half of the funding go to nonprofits that are under the 500 employee threshold. It mandates that any return amounts by redistribution through loans to small businesses with 10 or fewer employees. So remember when we first put it out there, we had some people who really weren't small businesses applying for the loans and getting them. Well, as that money comes back to the Treasury, we want to make sure it goes to the people who really felt hurt in the first tranche. It creates a safe harbor for borrowers who cannot rehire in the prescribed time frame. Something I've heard from the businesses up and down in Selby Avenue, including some larger businesses, that because of spacing and social distancing, they're going to need some relief on that. So we heard from the business, and we responded in the HEROES Act. And then, of course, I think one of the things that's most important is the $10 billion for emergency EIDL grants. So I could get into some of the waivers that it does and the microloans and all that. It's great. It's great stuff. And it's things that we heard from the chambers and from the business owners. But I'm a realist. The HEROES Act was passed by the House and it has an uncertain future in the Senate. The Senate, the last time we passed a major reform, wasn't going to be a part and party of giving our hospitals more dollars. And we said our hospitals needed to be addressed. The Senate came to the table. We came up with a fabulous bill. We hope that the Senate will also bring up the HEROES Act and look at how we have strategically gone to help families, businesses, owners, renters, people just survive this storm. So our economy can come back, and it can come back quicker and faster than it did even during the Great Recession, which we all just went through. Well, so there's a lot at stake, but I know you have a lot of questions about currently what's going on. So with that, I just want you to know, I talked about the HEROES Act, and I can take questions on that, but you have questions about what is available to you right now. What has passed? What is out there for you to use right now? What questions do you have about a loan or something that you've secured from the Small Business Administration right now? And so we have just the perfect person to answer those questions right now. So Brian, I'm going to turn it over to you. And once again, I do mean congratulations. You took on a tremendous amount of responsibility before your promotion in making sure that you served the people here in this area, but you've even stepped up knowing how challenging it is and say you'll do more. So thank you to you and your team.
Absolutely. Can you guys hear me okay?
We sure can.
Great. Yeah. So thank you very much, Congresswoman, and to the teams at the St. Paul Area Chamber and Midway Chamber for the opportunity to be here today and for your leadership and support. I think it's been tremendous. We've been working together the last couple weeks in various ways on different trainings. Bea and your team, we just really appreciate your ongoing support. And here at SBA, like the Congresswoman said, we're extremely committed to ensuring your success and doing everything that we can right now for the small business community and our recovery. And we know there's a lot of need out there, so we're giving it everything we have. And I know I'm holding everyone up from questions with the Congresswoman and myself. So I just wanted to cover a couple of quick points, what's happening here at the SBA, including some updates on SBA funding options, EIDL advance, paycheck protection loans, and also some new forgiveness guidance in an application that came out late on Friday. And then finally, just a few notes about our local efforts by the SBA team here in Minnesota. So we're working hard with our partners to ensure that America's small businesses and nonprofits can continue to get the resources that we all need. And so our office here works across the state of Minnesota to over 530,000 small business and nonprofits to employ half of the workforce here in Minnesota alone. So for PPP, so Paycheck Protection Plan, again, as the Congresswoman said, this is pretty much the flagship program that SBA is administering from round 2 and 3 of the stimulus. And so the Paycheck Protection Plan is a loan of up to $10 million for eligible small businesses and nonprofits. It has a 2-year term with a 1% interest rate, but what makes it so sweet is the possibility of forgiveness for those who retain their employees and use 75% of the funds on payroll over those 8 weeks. So a couple stats that we have as of 5 p.m. on May 16th, so at the end of last week, we have more than $116 billion that's still available nationwide, but specifically for Minnesota businesses, we have plenty of funds. And what I'm hearing from a lot of the lenders that I'm talking to is that the decks are clear and they've gone through their backlogs at this point. So for anyone that's looking to get a PPP loan right now, the funds are available, and it's a pretty much 2-page application form. So it's pretty painless, and funds could be available to you immediately. So if you are interested in that, you just have to go to an SBA lender, and we have a list of all of the SBA PPP lenders on our website at sba.gov/mn, and we keep that updated as well. The average, I just wanted to hit a couple more statistics on round 2 for PPP. And so we kicked off round 2 on April 27th. And in Minnesota, these stats are a little bit dated at this point, but we know that there's been over 43,000 small businesses and nonprofits who have received over 2.4 billion. And that's just here in Minnesota alone in round 2. Now in round 1, we were pretty much at 3rd in the country in terms of per capita utilization of the program. So really something that we want to make sure that everyone knows about and how to access these programs. And I think that's just a testament to partners that we have at the chambers with you guys and hosting these kind of events to get the word out. Plus our lending community here is really strong as well. So in round 2, the average size of a PPP loan has dropped significantly. And here in Minnesota, that's at about $54,000 is the average PPP loan in round 2. The average loan size nationally is $73,000. So I think we're seeing here in Minnesota that the loans are really truly going to even smaller businesses, both in round 2 and then even compared to nationally. And 91% of the loans are under $150,000. So again, we have information on our district office site. And then for anyone interested in just where everything lives in terms of guidance documents and everything else, it's sba.gov/paycheck protection or sba.gov/PPP. It goes to the same place. So that's the latest on Paycheck Protection Plan. EIDL. So SBA also through the CARES Act began to provide EIDL Advance. And EIDL is EIDL loans as well, which is a low interest rate loan with long-term repayment amortization rates of up to 30 years. And again, the EIDL Advance is up to $10,000 and it does not need to be repaid. And as of May 8th, our Minnesota specific numbers are a little bit behind at this point, but we know that over 1,200 small businesses in Minnesota have received more than 185 million in EIDL loans. And there's been over 45,000 small businesses that have received over 153 million in EIDL Advance. So EIDLs are going out, they're rolling. The EIDL Advance is, if you haven't gotten that, you should be getting that in a matter of days. The EIDL loan inherently was a slower process, and we knew that from the start. And that's why PPP is such a great option for short-term relief, plus the advance portion from the CARES Act. We really just wanted to get some immediate cash going. But we realized how critical this is and how frustrating it is that it is taking so long. And so just so you know, our office is here trying to do everything we can to help you on that. The Office of Disaster Assistance has a 1-800 number, and that's 1-800-659-2955, or you can email them at disastercustomerservice@sba.gov, and I'll make sure to share all these numbers and links with you guys, just so you can have them. I'm pretty sure you already do, but for anyone that wants any of that information, that's really the best way to get, if you just have a question about what is my status, I would recommend going about it that way. So in closing up, our team here in Minnesota, our primary focus right now is just being responsive to everyone. And so this week, we're going to continue to host a few trainings. We're adding in new forgiveness details to our trainings, and we have a Money Smart curriculum that's kind of financial literacy and financial management in partnership with FDIC. So we're doing those several times a week. Here in our office, we're hosting those. And then we're on a new regional task force. And I believe there's going to be some new trainings coming out soon. Nothing that's going to duplicate what our partners are already doing in the community. So we're canvassing with our partners right now so that we're really stepping in with areas that are unfilled and areas of need. One notably would be preserving cash flow, and others training at targeted industries like restaurants and childcare. I think we're going to look into that. But of course, I'm really open for any feedback from you all on any areas or services that we can provide that would be of benefit today. So I really see this as a good listening session as well, and I'm happy to share the information that I have. And I would be remiss if I didn't mention that we have a great newsletter, and that pretty much almost goes out daily at this point. So you can sign up for that at sba.gov/updates, updates with an S on the end, and you just put in your Minnesota zip code, and you'll get immediate information from our team when there's new program updates, like on forgiveness or on some of those new training opportunities that I mentioned. So thank you very much, and I'm going to stick around and appreciate it. Back to you, B.
Thank you both so much. Congresswoman McCollum, I can't tell you enough how important that HEROES Act legislation is, and how much strongly we support you, not only for the C6 organizations, but really for these micro businesses and the minority business owners who are the ones who need this the most, who are having the most difficult time accessing resources and support. So this is really great. Chad, do you mind if we go straight to these questions, since so many of them are really from our audience? We'd like to get those out first.
Absolutely, let's go for it.
All right, so I'll just ask the first one, and this is to Congresswoman McCollum, and it speaks to, can you provide how much money is included in the HEROES Act for local government relief for Minnesota? And then to tie into that, Congresswoman, is a question about what the process is for the C6 nonprofits to be getting funding in order to get this passed in the Senate. What might that look like?
Well, so the state and local government funding, we've had two tranches. The first one was for state governments, primarily got it, and some of the very large cities got a bit of it. And it was all for COVID-related expenses. Well, we know now with the businesses being closed and what's happening with so much of the rest of the economy, that cities and municipalities are facing a revenue crunch. And so some of, and it is, you could say it's indirectly COVID related, but it's COVID related, because if a business is closed down, whether it's a garden shop, your favorite place to get a cool cocktail in a hot Minnesota summer, or where you normally go buy your sneakers or something like that, and it's closed now, that's less revenue coming in. And we know, even though the restaurants are trying to do takeout, that's less revenue coming in. So is it a COVID related expense with what's going on? Still have to pay police and fire. We still want those potholes fixed and other things like that. So there's about $4 billion coming into the state of Minnesota. And we'll have a breakdown on our website later, what it's gonna look like, because we just voted this into law on Friday. But there's a portion that goes to the state, and then there's portions that go to municipalities based on their size. And it's a formula that's done across the country. And I really was glad that it was based on size across the country rather than just using some of the old traditional formulas, because as you know, Minnesota is a donor state to the federal government. And this guarantees a much more equitable distribution to our state and our municipalities. The state and counties and some of the municipalities, there's different tranches. There's a very special tranche of money for some of our smallest units of government, especially in the very rural parts of townships. And the state will work with Treasury to administer those funds so that they can get out faster. But it's still waiting for the Senate. The question on the nonprofits, we can get really technical into all the different things on that. If that person would like to forward on to you what they would like information back on, we'll do that. As we have this bill passed, and this is one thing I want to be careful of, because we've passed 4 other pieces of legislation that have provided funding, money, and some direction to the Bureau here, the Small Business Bureau. The HEROES Act is not law yet. And so I want to be very succinct and very clear when I'm giving information, so that someone doesn't have an unfulfilled expectation of what Brian and his team can do for them. So we're happy to get back on specifics, on details, if you have something very specific on a nonprofit.
Oh, great. Well, so let's get back and thank you for that. And I'll ask a couple more questions. And I want to give a special shout out to Ramsey and Washington County Commissioners. They're participating today, very interested in hearing from you. Just wanted to let you know you have strong support here. There's a question in reference to Brian. So we're happy to say congratulations to you, Brian. We have been strong supporters of all of you've done. You've taken very specific care to come out and visit with us and figure out how we can help you serve the business community. So sincere thank you. A question from the audience is, when do you see the SBA providing greater guidance regarding loan forgiveness? That is a growing question I'm hearing a lot about.
Yeah, so on Friday evening, there was the Paycheck Protection Plan loan forgiveness application that was posted. So I know that that was pretty much one of the #1 things that that we were hearing, and we knew that everyone is waiting for more guidance on the forgiveness piece, because like I mentioned, that kind of is what makes PPP the flagship program. So there is the application. So that did come out last Friday. Now that's available at sba.gov/PPP. It's on that website. And then there's also Treasury has some good resources on their website, which is www.treasury.gov/cares for the CARES Act. And then you can find it pretty easily either on one of our websites or the others. Now it's got a lot of information on it. So I know our team is going to be in meetings today. We're still digging through it. It's about the whole document itself is 11 pages long, but it does list what is required in terms of submitting for forgiveness. So if you're a borrower, you fill out this application and you submit it to your SBA lender, who you got the Paycheck Protection Plan loan through, and that's how it works. So so it's great to see that big piece of guidance in the application itself. Now I expect, and I'm going to be on some more calls with DC today, finding out more, but I expect there's going to be subsequent guidance that comes out kind of following on to this. And I view this as, you know, an opportunity for our office for questions that come in. I know we're aggregating those right now.
Thank you, Brian. And just a reminder that, you know, we do have some resources available that we can send out to people that the SBA has been providing, including those updates. We're going to send a link to that as well. This next question I want to ask Congresswoman McCollum, are you hearing about a demand to create more funding in the long term? Unfortunately, our recovery period is going to be long here.
So one of the things that we have moving forward for certain is we have to do our annual appropriations. And so we're being very strategic in our annual appropriations. For example, I have the interior bill. And so the things that I'm looking at doing are those things that have infrastructure to them, so that we can get more jobs, more people hired, more money circulating back in the economy. So the interior bill, I mean, you think we've got parks backlog for buildings, for roads, for bridges and parks. I have the EPA as part of what they do. So the Great Lakes restoration and some of the work that they do that put people back to work. Cleaning up brownfields is certainly a great way to put money back in the economy, not only for today, but to create opportunities in the future. And then the challenge that I have really is the unmet demand for sewer and water in many of our municipalities, not only here in the 4th District in Minnesota, but across the country, which means making more pipe, which means putting more people back to work, which can mean taking more taconite out of the ground. So we're really focused as we do our annual appropriations to not only keep government running smoother, but look for those opportunities where we can make sure that we're making smart investments, not only for the economy today, but to build on in the future. The other package that we've been talking about, you know, and I use the royal we, I'm going to say the administration and the Congress, Democrats and Republicans have been talking about putting together a bold stimulus package. And just as the state's looking at doing its bonding bill, that's kind of what we're looking at doing. I want to say a big federalized bonding bill, working with states and local governments. It'd be transportation, transit, water quality improvements, energy efficiency in public buildings, a whole host of things where we can create a lot of jobs. And I would point out, if you remember, when the Green Line was being built was when we were going through the Great Recession. And so infrastructure projects like that have a huge positive impact in putting a lot of people back to work. So we do have a proposal that we're working on with that. And the head of the Mr. Powell, I want to say Mr. Muchin, but I want to get this right. But Mr. Muchin's working with us with Treasury on this. But the Federal Reserve, now is the time. If we are going to borrow money, if we're going to make investments, now is the time for the federal government to do it when the interest rates are low. They're never going to be low again. We're never going to get as much bang for our buck as what we can get right now by putting America back to work and building something that people can use today, but also creates a stronger foundation for the next generation. So those are the two things that we're working on. The one thing I know will happen is we will do the annual appropriations bill. The stimulus bill, I think you're going to hear more about it.
Thank you. And I appreciate that you also brought up infrastructure. That's also a really important thing that people need to be thinking about. Brian, I have a question for you. You mentioned people getting the loans through their lenders, their financial institutions. And one thing I really notice about this is it's so important to have those strong banking relationships. It's really been a big help. We've heard it from some of our members who said they relied on it very heavily. But unfortunately, not everybody has those relationships with a financial institution. Or for some, if they do, their financial institution might not be a part of PPP. What advice do you have for them?
So great question. And I think that's really why I highlighted the fact that there's still plenty of funding available right now. And so I think it's a critical time. We do have a list, like I mentioned, of lenders on our website, and round 2 did open up and change things from round 1, which went extremely quickly. And so in round 2, what we did is, and what Congress appropriated for us, was to have some set-asides for smaller lenders. So I think we saw that in the second round that it really gave some windows of opportunities for some of our smaller lenders, and they've really stepped up to the plate. So I think for those that are still looking for a loan, we do have resources, like I mentioned, on our website for who is available. Another big change in the second round is the availability of some of the fintech lenders. For those who might not have had a relationship with a business banker. And so by fintech, what I mean is there are groups like PayPal, Intuit, Cabbage, Square, some of the online lenders. Now, in order for them to participate in the PPP process, everyone offers the same rates and fees. There are no fees on the PPP program. So I think there's a lot of different options that are out there. And if anyone here, that's why our office is here. We're a local resource for you. And so our contact information, one great way to reach us is minneapolis.mn@sba.gov. And if you need any help in finding our contact information, I'm happy to give that as well. But that's something we want to make sure everyone who is interested in PPP can have the resources to be able to apply for it.
Brian raises a great point. If I can add on to that, you think about the daycare providers who didn't necessarily go out and get a loan to start their family daycare business. Mm-hmm. And so we're working to find ways to connect those. Some of the daycare providers that I talked to didn't even think they were eligible for it because they didn't see themselves as a small business. They are so much into nurturing and taking care of kids that they sometimes forget that it's a business until you're in trouble, right? Until you don't have people coming and that. So Brian's absolutely right. It's not a point of being creative to get the money out. It's a point of being creative to let people know that they can apply for the funds. So, and I know your team's doing a great job on that, but part of that's, we need to spread the word too, because sometimes when we think of small businesses, I'll just use them again as an example. There's other examples out there. Our daycare providers, the adult daycare centers are having a huge problem right now too. And I just saw in the local paper that the Salvation Army one in Maplewood's closing. And we know as people return back to work, things aren't going to change. There's still going to be some people in our society that are vulnerable adults that need that special activity and special time in their life that the daycare centers provide. So sometimes we need to think out of the box as to what a business is.
Indeed.
Right. Well, looking ahead into the future a little bit more, come November, we have an election. Tell us about the movement at the federal level to vote by mail in all 50 states.
So we can only have input on federal elections. And so this isn't about school board elections or municipality elections. We're not telling anybody what to do with that. But when it comes to electing the senators, members of Congress, and the President of the United States, we want to make sure that everybody participates. And so one of the things that we're looking at doing, and there's a lot in the HEROES Act, is helping states prepare to do more vote by mail, helping states maybe to do more absentee voting for any reason, like Minnesota moved forward to, and to make sure that people know that it doesn't cost them to vote. So some states, some places, they'll charge for a notary of a ballot or something on a local ballot. We're saying, for a federal ballot, you don't need to go to a notary. You don't have to do all that. And then we want to make sure all the ballots are counted. As we know what happened in one of the adjacent states to the east, people postmarked their ballot, but because of COVID and other things, it didn't get picked up, and then they didn't feel their vote didn't count. So we try to clarify things in local elections. The most important thing I think we do in the HEROES Act is provide money. I've been on the phone with Secretary of State Steve Simon quite a bit. I mean, we need to make sure that poll workers feel safe. We need to make sure voters feel safe for the people who do want to vote in person. No one's talking about eliminating in-voting in person. It's just giving people more options. So cleaning supplies and things that states are going to need in order to conduct safe federal elections. This is a federal election coming up. We want to make sure every voter feels safe and comfortable and knows how to participate. And that includes being able to vote by mail.
Thank you. So we have one final question for you. The pandemic certainly has created a lot of change. Is there anything you've experienced that seems like an opportunity for a good change?
I think the opportunity has been both for many families personal. And I've watched this experience in talking to my nieces and nephews and friends who have small children. Siblings have all of a sudden discovered one another. It took a couple weeks, but they find out that they can play board games together. Your sister and brother can go out in the backyard and shoot hoops and kind of have fun. So that's been one ray of sunshine. I think that I know a lot of families are feeling very blessed by. I think families are also being very stressed by trying to do at-home schooling. And I had a conversation with many of our superintendents on just this past week about that. So I think the one challenge that I've taken away from this is to be even more of an advocate than I was before for telemedicine. Because that is a way to reduce costs, reduce stress, whether it's flu season, COVID, whatever. Sometimes it's just much better if you can do the telemedicine and get a quicker response, and then doctors and nurses have more time that they can invest in some of the other patient needs that come their way. So that you and I both know sometimes we just need to talk to the doctor, and it's quick and it's a prescription. Sometimes you need to go in. So if you can get the people that don't need to go in, just making the phone call, talking to a nurse practitioner or a nurse, to do the triage, to make things move faster, the more time we're going to have with the doctor when we do need to talk to the doctor. So I think telemedicine is the one thing that's really inspired me to do on more. And then I would just close with this. The inequities for centuries in Indian country, along with the inequities with health disparities for our brothers and sisters of other races and the four of us on this video, let's be honest. are coming into a glare. We have an opportunity to treat everyone with dignity and respect, whether you're young, old, or what ethnic background you are. That's an opportunity that'll make us a better country.
Indeed, indeed. Worthy comment to end this on. I want to be very respectful of your time as I'm looking at the clock here. We do need to end it, but Congresswoman McCollum, Brian, thank you so much for taking the time to be with us today. We absolutely appreciate your work, the time you took for us, and how you're communicating with us.
Thank you.
Thanks, Brian.
And also,
Thank you.
can we say thanks to our audience as well for joining us and submitting your questions. We do wish we had more time for all of them, but we will communicate the resources back to all of you based on this.
We'll get back to people. Thank you, B.
Thank you.
Thank you, Chad.
Thank you. Thank you.
Well, this session was recorded and will be available at a later date. For more information on future SPAC and Midway Chamber events, please refer to our websites, and don't forget to like, follow, and subscribe on social media. Thank you for joining us, and have a great day.